Hey everyone, welcome back to Hershey Learn. I'm Harshita and today we are diving into an essential loop in C Sharp, the while loop. Imagine you're building an application that keeps asking for a password until the correct one is entered. That's exactly where while loop is useful. By the end of this tutorial, you'll know what a while loop is, how it works, and common mistakes to avoid and practical real world examples. So, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to Hershey Learn for more C Sharp tutorials. Now, let's get started. Now, let's see what is a while loop. While loop is a type of loop that repeats a block of code as long as the given condition is true. For example, think about a password system that keeps asking for the input until the correct password is entered. You don't know how many times the user will enter the wrong password. Correct. So, while loop is a perfect for this. Let's look at the syntax. The while keyword is followed by a condition. If the condition is true, the loop runs. If it is false, the loop stops. Let's start with a simple example. We'll declare an integer variable int I is equal to 1. Okay, let me add this while loop here. While I less than or equal to 5. Okay, this while loop will be keep on running as long as this I is less than or equal to 5. Inside this while loop, let me print Hershey learn class plus I, and then I'll increase this I by 1, means I plus plus. If we don't increment this I, this loop will run forever, means it will become infinite loop. When we run this program, it prints a number from 1 to 5. Once this I become 6, the loop condition is false, then the loop stops. Okay, I'll show you by running this code. Yes, here you can see it prints a number from 1 to 5. Now, let's look at some real world scenarios where the while loop is super useful. Password validation. Imagine a login system. The program keeps asking for a password until the correct one is entered. We don't get access until it is right. Countdown timer. A while loop is perfect for creating countdown timers because it keeps running until the timer hits 0 and it making it great for this timed events. And the next one is reading files. When processing files, the loop reads each line one by one until it reaches the end. This is useful for working with logs or CSV files. And the last one is game logic. Think about rolling dice in a game. You keep on rolling until you get a specific number. Correct. This while loop handles this efficiently. So, as you can see, the while loop is super handy in programming. Let's move ahead and see it in action. Now, let's create password validation example. For that, I need a string to store the correct password. Password is Hershey123. Okay. I need another string variable to store user input. Variable name is user input. Now I'll add this while loop here while true. It means it will run indefinitely until we explicitly break out of it. Okay. Inside this while loop, now I'll prompt the user to enter the password. Console.writeline. Enter here password. Then I'll store it in user input. Okay. Now let me add the if condition here. If the user input is equal to correct password. If the user input matches the correct password, I should print access granted and exit the loop. Okay. So I'll add this break statement here. So it will come out of this while loop. Or else, if the password is incorrect, it should print incorrect password and try again. Let me close this parenthesis. I'll add the semicolon here. I'll save this. Let me run this code. First, let me enter wrong password. Hershey. See, here I can see incorrect password. Try again. Let me enter Harsh. Again, it is incorrect password and try again. Let me enter 123 now. Yes, again incorrect password and try again. Here you can see the loop is keep on running. Correct. Now I'll provide the correct password. Hershey 123. Yes. Here you can see access granted. I hope you understood this program. Similar way, you can give it a try for this countdown timer and also reading files, and you can try some games so that you get some hands-on experience about this while loops. Now, let's see some of the common mistakes we do when we are working with while loops. The first one is using single equal to operator instead of double equal to in conditions. And the next one is forgetting to use curly braces when we are writing multiple lines of code. And the last one, this is the most common mistake we do in while loops, forgetting to update the loop variable. Let me show you an example. Let's take an integer, int I is equal to 1. Now I'll add this while loop here, while I less than or equal to 5. Inside this while loop, let me print console.writeLine number plus I. Okay. This code will cause an infinite loop because this I is never incremented here. Okay. So this I less than or equal to 5 will always be 0. Always make sure to update your loop variable inside the loop to avoid an infinite loop. Now, let's see nested while loops in C Sharp. Nested while loops means placing one while loop inside another. This is useful when you're working with multi-level iterations like printing patterns, handling multi-dimensional data, or solving complex logic that requires repeated checks inside another loop. Let's see this with a practical example. Let me take an integer variable int I is equal to 1. Okay, first I'll add this while loop here. This is outer while loop. I less than or equal to 3. Okay, this is outer loop. Okay, inside this outer loop, I'll declare another integer variable int j is equal to 1. Now I'll define inner while loop. J less than or equal to this is also 3. Okay, this is inner loop. Inside this inner loop, let me print console.write j plus space. Okay, this prints a number in a row. Okay, after this, I need to do this j plus plus. After this inner loop, I need to print console.writeLine. Okay, now I need to increment I plus plus here. This outer loop runs for 3 times, okay, and this inner loop also runs for 3 times for each outer loop iterations, and it prints the number in row. After this inner loops completes, I need a new line to be printed, so I have added this console.writeLine here. I'll run this code. Yes, here you can see it printed in 3 cross 3 matrix. This is how this nested while loops works. Now, let's learn about break statement in a while loop and how it helps us to stop loop immediately when the condition is met. The break statement is used inside the loops like while, for or do while also to immediately exit the loop. Once the break is executed, the program stops looping and moves to the next code after the loop. Okay, let's see this with the example. Okay, let's take an integer. Count is equal to 1. Now, I'll define an infinite loop while true. Okay, first, let me print console.writeLine, the iterations. Okay, plus count here. I'll add this if condition. The count is equal to 5. Console.writeLine, print. Here we are breaking the loop. Breaking the loop. And add this parenthesis, semicolon. To break the loop, we need to add this break statement here. Okay. This stops the loop at count 5. And add the comment here. It stops the loop at count is equal to 5. Okay. Let me increment the count here. After this loop, let me print loop ended. Okay, let me run this code. Yes, here you can see it exactly stopped after this 5th iteration. I hope you got some idea about break statements now. The break statement is useful when you need to stop the loops early based on the condition. So, it helps us to prevent unnecessary iterations and makes our program more efficient. Now, let's learn how the continue statement works in while loop. The continue statement is used to skip the current iteration and move to the next one. Let's see how it works with an example. Okay, let me take an integer I is equal to 0. After this, I'll use an while loop here while I less than 10. Inside this while loop, first I'll increment this I. After incrementing, I'll use this if condition here. If I is equal to 5. If I is equal to 5, continue. After this, I'll use this console.writeLine I. Okay. Here, if the I is equal to 5, the continuous statement will get executed and it will skip this console.writeLine. Okay. Then the loop moves to the next iteration without printing this 5. Let me run this. Yes, in the output you can see it printed 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's not printed 5 because it skipped due to this continuous statement. This is how this continuous statement works. I hope you understood. Okay, here are some performance tips for while loops. Avoid infinite loops because it can freeze your program, and use break statement wisely to exit early if needed. And for non-iterations, use for loop. If you don't know about for loops, don't worry. I'll be teaching this in my future lectures. And the last one is optimize condition checks to reduce calculations. That brings us to the end of this session. I hope now you have a clear understanding of while loops and how to use them effectively. Remember to write efficient conditions, avoid infinite loops, and choose the right loop for the job. Practice is a key to master any concept, so go ahead and try while loops on your own code. If you found this helpful, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe to Hershey Learn for more programming tips and tricks. Thanks for watching and happy coding.